Chinese language Twitter is full of raunchy content. Some of the accounts are scammers, but some of them seem to be coming from the Chinese government. Welcome to China Uncensored, I'm Chris Chappell. If you follow a lot of Chinese dissidents on Twitter, and I know you do, you may have noticed that the comment sections have become pretty X-rated these days. There are tons of spam accounts, mostly with profile pictures of young women, like this one, that make suggestive comments like, "When will you come mess up my aunt's bed?" Why would you do that to your aunt's bed? If you go to her Twitter page, there are a lot of posts with suggestive photos, as well as an invite to chat with her on Telegram. I'm sure she's a really nice person and really interesting to talk to, and definitely not a man. You'll also find posts in the comment section that are straight up porn because Twitter allows that. I guess there's a reason they changed the name to X. Now that was just one account, but it's pretty representative of the kind of accounts that flood Chinese dissidents' Twitter pages. This is partly the result of Chinese sextortion scammers flooding Twitter, and it's getting really, really bad. How bad? Well, it's hard to measure, but a Chrome extension called Pure Twitter, which was developed to deal with this issue, said it's blacklisting between 30 and 70 accounts a day. Users see it everywhere on Chinese Twitter. And some users are getting fed up with it. I guess part of the idea is to make the pages of these Chinese dissidents so toxic, people just stop going. And I don't want you to click on any of these accounts either. Just think of Jesus. Now some are saying the porn scams are so overwhelming, they've given up on trying to report them. Which is too bad. Twitter can be a great place to find love. Like how I found my soulmate, Li Xin. Her English name is Moon Pie. And this is definitely a photo of her. She just needs me to send her some money so she can come to America. So how do these scams work? One Chinese investigative reporter said a victim reached out to him and told him what happened. One of these accounts with a pretty lady profile encourages you to message them on Telegram. Why Telegram, you ask? Well, according to security researchers, the anonymity and encryption on Telegram allows criminals to easily go undetected by law enforcement. And compared to other social media platforms, Telegram isn't as quick about removing spammers as other companies. Well, most other companies. I'll talk about Twitter in a minute. So according to this guy who fell for one of these scams, once the scammers had him on Telegram, they asked him to download some software, supposedly for security reasons. They recorded him doing embarrassing things and then used it as blackmail, threatening to release the footage if he didn't pay them. I don't know who needs to hear this, but if you think a pretty girl wants to have sex with you for free, you're either Brad Pitt or you're really, really gullible. It's pretty safe to say that no one offering free sex or relationship on Twitter is actually offering free sex or relationship on Twitter. Especially not the girls that say they never ask anyone for money. Now, you may remember back during the blank paper lockdown protests last November, there were a lot of Chinese bots that flooded Twitter with explicit porn to drown out news of the protests. Numerous Chinese language accounts, some dormant for months or years, came back to life and started spamming Twitter with links to escort services and other adult offerings alongside city names. This led some to suggest that the Chinese government was erecting a great wall of porn to obscure protest news on Twitter. Joke's on them because it became more popular than ever. I swear, you people should read the Bible more often. It would make a lot of sense if the government were behind this. Twitter is banned in China, but a lot of Chinese citizens jump the Great Firewall and head to Twitter to find out what's really going on in China because Twitter is not being censored by the Chinese government. And that makes it one of the go-to places for that kind of information. However, one of the organizations analyzing the data, the Stanford Internet Observatory, concluded that the spam was mostly commercial in nature and unrelated to the protests. They said that what seemed like an uptick in spam accounts was really just new ones being created as old ones were removed. And they found that both before and after the protests, these spam accounts were targeting hashtags of Chinese cities, so it wasn't necessarily related to the protests. So the blank paper protest porn wall might have just been commercial spammers. But it's also true this is something the Chinese government does. When there was a 40-day lockdown in Xinjiang's Ili prefecture last year, a leaked government directive told internet commentary personnel to carry out comment flooding on topics related to the pandemic on Weibo, China's version of Twitter. They were told to steer the conversation away from the lockdowns and focus on things like domestic life, daily parenting, cooking, or personal moods. Because what everyone wants to read about as they're starving, locked in their apartments, is cooking and lifestyle tips. That definitely won't piss anyone off. Meta recently publicized its efforts to take down a sprawling Chinese spamouflage operation. It said it took down thousands of accounts and pages that were part of the largest known cross-platform covert influence operation in the world, linked to individuals associated with Chinese law enforcement. Operation Spamouflage was a Chinese spam operation trying to covertly boost China and criticize the West. One of the platforms this was happening on was Twitter. And in case you're wondering, I'm not going to start calling it X until it changes its URL to x.com. When that happens, we'll finally know it has completed its transformation into Elon Musk's personal X-rated dumpster fire. So why is this happening so much on Chinese Twitter? I'll tell you right after this short commercial break. Welcome back. Probably from a blank screen, but hopefully from an ad. You see, YouTube doesn't like us talking about sensitive topics like the Chinese government or porn, and definitely not Chinese government porn. I'm sorry, that was a terrible visual. What I meant was porn being pushed by the Chinese government, because the CCP is definitely behind at least some of this porn spamming. As some Twitter users have pointed out, when you go to pages of some of these porn scammers, their posts show they're pretty die-hard Chinese patriots. Take this account, for example. In between seductive pictures of young women, she posts rants about how bad life is outside of China, scenic pictures of the motherland, and agrees with government talking points about Japan releasing water from its Fukushima nuclear power plant. And ironically, she also posts about suspected online scammers extradited from Myanmar. So clearly she's not a scammer, she's just a shill for the Chinese government. But what's important is that her tactics are the same as the sextortion scammers. Under a post by that investigative reporter I mentioned earlier, this same account leaves a comment asking the reporter to show off his tipping income. This is why it's so hard to tell porn spam from Chinese state bots. They use the same tactics to get people's attention, which also distracts from info that's censored in China. And when I say people, I really mean Chinese guys who are jumping the firewall. You see, Chinese censors keep a tight grip on porn. So anyone jumping the firewall is probably going to be exposed to a lot more X-rated content, especially if they're going on Twitter or X. It seems like the government is banking on this lack of access to porn in China to lure these guys' attention away from what they were on Twitter for in the first place, info that the Chinese government didn't want them to see. The other thing that makes Chinese users a target is their lack of savvy when it comes to foreign platforms like Twitter. The blue checkmark, which used to mean an account was vetted by Twitter, is now something anyone can get with a credit card. This might give these spam accounts an appearance of legitimacy that other platforms don't have. And if Chinese users aren't familiar with how blue checkmarks work now, they might think these are verified accounts. There are a few other reasons this seems to be happening on Chinese Twitter and not elsewhere. First off, Twitter doesn't ban explicit content on its site. I mean, there are restrictions on it, but not a wholesale ban. For example, according to Twitter's sensitive media policy, you can't include graphic content or adult nudity and sexual behavior within areas that are highly visible on Twitter. That's why you'll see a lot of scammers using headshots of young women in their profile pics, but you have to click into their account to see the more explicit stuff. That keeps them from being flagged by Twitter. The other reason Chinese Twitter seems to have turned into an adult-only show is because Twitter is slow to remove this kind of content. When Elon Musk was considering buying Twitter, he vowed to defeat the spam bots or die trying. But once he became CEO, things didn't go as planned. To save money, he laid off about 80% of Twitter's workforce. Hundreds more reportedly opted to leave rather than work under Musk. So the departments that were working on reducing spam like this have been gutted. One former Twitter employee told the Washington Post that all the China influence operations and analysts at Twitter resigned. And to be honest, even if they were still around, I'm not sure Musk would listen to them anyway. He's introduced some pretty, shall we say, China-friendly policies since he's been at Twitter, like removing the labels on Chinese state media. And it makes sense when you look at how much business he has in China that relies on being in the government's good graces. But you know who doesn't have business in China? China Uncensored. In fact, taking on the Chinese Communist Party turned out to be a good life choice, but a really bad financial decision. We're constantly being attacked by China's 50-cent army who try to get our videos demonetized. And advertisers don't want to work with us because they're afraid they'll lose business in China. So that's why we rely on fans like you to support the show on Patreon. You can join us for as little as $1 an episode and can even set a monthly limit. Click that orange button there to join the club. And if you want to know more about another shady big tech corporation, check out this video from my new channel, Gamers Unbeaten, about the Shinra Corporation and the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.